drafts. Warren Sharp wrote an article this weekend. No team in the league has reached on more players over the last 4 or 5 years, and a lot of them are just don't play in the league. They drafted a kicker in the 3rd round, and just a bad pick. I didn't like this draft. Shocker, they drafted another wide receiver. Now, people will say this, well, they win a lot. Well, how'd they do against Seattle last year when they played them twice, those last 2 times? 41-6, 13-3, could not move the ball. Why? Because Seattle doesn't miss on draft picks. Seattle has a much younger, athletic, deeper, less brittle roster. The Rams have drafted so well defensively. They match up now very well with San Francisco. So the Niners are so dependent on out-scheming people to win, Kyle Shanahan, and he can do that for over half the league. But good luck out-scheming McVay twice a year or out-scheming Mike McDonald of Seattle twice a year. You're not going to do it. Those are 2 of the top 5 coaches in the league. So you can still beat up a Nick Sirianni, who's not a good scheme coach. And Kyle's going to keep you competitive. But the Niners are now so reliant on older, great players. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Bosa. Seattle, they moved off one of their best edge rushers. He's now in Cincinnati. They're good. Last year, Seattle lost a running back in the season. It didn't matter. They won the Super Bowl. The Rams, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams will miss starts with injuries or age. Doesn't matter. They got guys. What happens to the Niners is if they lose Trent Williams, they have a losing record. If McCaffrey can't play, losing record. So with the Niners, you just cross your fingers that nobody gets hurt in camp and everybody gets healthy about Thanksgiving. They're so dependent because they've missed on so many picks. And Grant Cohn's a local reporter, and he called out John Lynch, who I like, but once again, I can't follow their draft. They'll take guys 55, 60 spots. I watched Indiana a lot. The running back was fine. It was Fernando, their defensive front, and their wide receivers I really liked. So I don't know what to do with their drafts. I feel the same way every year. And there's an argument that the best draft GM in the league is in their division, John Snyder, and the team that is literally draft defense better than any in the league over the last 3 years is in their division. It's the Rams and Les Snead and Sean McVay.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the more intriguing discussions that have emerged over the weekend regarding the 49ers. And I'd say quite a few fans are genuinely displeased. A lot of San Francisco supporters are not happy at all. I definitely came across people defending John Lynch, making the case that, well, we've reached the NFC Championship game year after year, made 2 Super Bowl appearances, and so on and so forth. That seems to be the more common argument I see. But here's the thing, that's Kyle Shanahan. I mean, he's the constant thread running through all of that. That's the common denominator. Alongside him, over some of those seasons, you've obviously had a rotating cast of defensive coordinators, but also some very talented ones. And look, I think Lynch has assembled some truly excellent teams and made some really impressive moves. Don't get me wrong. Even the Christian McCaffrey trade, that wasn't exactly universally popular. People questioned that deal, saying, oh, that's too much money, this and that, giving up too much draft capital, blah blah blah. And sure, he's also made mistakes, Trey Lance, for instance. But he's made aggressive moves, built outstanding rosters, yet lately, for the most part, they've struggled a bit with roster turnover and reloading. It's like the analogy I use, you have a step behind you, then you move it in front, take a step, then bring it back behind, put it ahead again. That's something the 49ers have had trouble managing. Gee, and listen, Shanahan did a remarkable job last season given all the injuries, right? Because when Chris Collinsworth says, oh, when Puka Nacua goes down or whatever, it's like, Sean McVay still wins games. But I mean, the 49ers basically had every single player get hurt. It felt like at least every player missed at least one game last year. And yet, they still managed to make the playoffs. So that has to count for something, doesn't it? But the year before that? That wasn't the case at all. He didn't handle the injuries well enough then. He was overly dependent on Christian McCaffrey. Then in 2024, McCaffrey was largely absent, so they couldn't win. And this past season, with McCaffrey back and healthy, they showed real resilience against all those injuries. So as great as Kyle Shanahan is, And I think he's absolutely brilliant and fantastic. You'd still like to see some kind of evolution here. Some kind of adjustment. Again, I don't think it was a bad draft. I really don't. I mean, they need depth, they need younger, healthier players, right? They genuinely need those things. They need bodies because they're competent in their system on both sides of the ball. That's true. But they simply run out of bodies. So in many ways, the name of the game for the 49ers is just, we need competent play. We need reliability. If we just get competence, we have the right coaching staff to put everyone in the correct positions. And therefore, we set them up to succeed. But I will say this, considering how excellent the 49ers have been, clearly a top franchise in the NFL for years now, a lot of times when I make statements like that, I'm really looking at the last 10 years or so, roughly the past decade. And I always use the 49ers as an example when I say, oh, you know, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, etc. And then the 49ers are always included in that group. But here's the problem, the Rams did win a Super Bowl within this time frame. The Rams went out and won a championship. The Seahawks also got there and won one. The Eagles did too, right? We see other teams succeeding. And we watched the Eagles play the Chiefs and dominate them in a way that the 49ers, frankly, should have been able to. But they didn't. Not even close. So you really have to ask yourself, yes, there's been a ton of success here. An enormous amount of success. Some absolute masterclasses along the way. But it's not just about being competitive or being a great team or remaining relevant year after year. It's about being truly special. It's about winning a Super Bowl. And the 49ers have come up short in that regard. That's indisputable. You obviously can't argue against that. And again, when you see the Seahawks do it, the Rams do it, the Eagles do it, you see two teams within your own division get it done. They each won a Super Bowl after you first reached the Super Bowl in 2019. And they were able to bring the trophy home in a way that you simply were not. So again, we can blame injuries, we can point to other factors, and all of that is valid. It's absolutely all valid. You know, I think sometimes when we have these kinds of conversations, people assume it's just narrowing in on one thing. Right? Like, it's all Shanahan's fault. It's all Brock Purdy's fault. It's all John Lynch's fault. That's not what I'm saying. There are lots of variables at play here. Lots of them. But it's still worth pausing and thinking, you know, what do we need to do to become a more resilient team and finally get over this hurdle? Because you really are too good, and you've had two rosters that were too strong, not to have won at least one Super Bowl during this last decade-long run or so. And it's frustrating. And then again, when you see the Rams clear the hurdle, the Seahawks clear it, the Eagles clear it, you know, the Eagles reach the Super Bowl in 2022, lose, have a messy 2023 season, then in 2024, get back to the Super Bowl and win. And you think, wow, okay. The Seahawks, seemingly out of nowhere, move on from Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, get a new coordinator, a new head coach, etc., etc. Sam Darnold comes in, wins a Super Bowl. And they were a worthy team, obviously. Everyone was talking about Matthew Stafford and the Rams, MVP, McVay, oh my gosh. Then the Seahawks said, no. That means something. That counts for something. And just like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2024, I said, look what the Eagles did to the Chiefs. You're on the clock, Bills. You're on the clock, Ravens. What are you doing? That same year, the Buffalo Bills played the exact same Kansas City Chiefs team that the Eagles faced in the playoff run, and it was completely different. Night and day. And people were saying, oh, you know, Jalen Hurts isn't even that good of a quarterback. And my response is, he won the Super Bowl. He's the Super Bowl MVP. And they say, yeah, but his team is better. So I say, build a better team, Bills. Build a better team, Ravens. Build a better team, Bengals. They were able to do what you have simply never shown the ability to do, whether in the regular season, playoffs, let alone a Super Bowl. And so that's on your franchise. That's on you to find a way. And that's where I kind of look at the 49ers in a similar light, though not as extreme as what I say about the Ravens, Bills, or Bengals, where it's just kind of like, yeah. You saw it. Just look at your own division. You saw what the Seahawks were able to accomplish. You saw what the Rams were able to accomplish. And it's like, build a better team. And again, we can say, yeah, but the injuries. We built great teams and they got hurt. And that's a big part of it. I'm not denying that at all. I'm really not. But still, find a way. So, again, everyone is so confident about draft selections. I said this before. Everyone is so confident. And I made a joke earlier where I named random players and said, you know, the vast majority of people don't even know who they are. And of course. When you make a video, lots of people comment. Some of them will know those names. A lot of people watch a ton of college football, watch all the shows, and dig deep into the draft. But the absolute vast majority of people don't even know how to pronounce these guys' names, let alone who they are, where they played, or what their potential might be. So there ends up being a huge amount of groupthink around the draft. A massive amount. Now, the problem is that everyone either wants to jump on the bandwagon of whatever the mainstream opinion is, or they immediately want to push back against it and say, no, 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 no. I just encourage people not to fall immediately into either of those camps. You're just going along with everyone else, yeah, we crushed it because that's what everyone said, or oh my god, this draft was awful because that's the consensus, or you automatically take the opposite stance just because everyone else is saying one thing. I think the 49ers were on a mission to acquire as much young talent as they possibly could. They took some swings. But they want some youth in that building right now. They want fresh legs. Either to avoid injuries altogether, or if they do get banged up, they're much easier to recover. To me, that was the intention. And it makes sense given that over the last 2 years, injuries have truly devastated them. So, you know, depending on how this all works out and how good or not good they end up being. Again, there are certain teams where it's really just a wait-and-see situation. There are certain drafts where I think, I absolutely love this. Knocked it out of the park. Love the decision-making. Love the risk tolerance. Love the bold choices. Love the conservative pick, whatever it may be. Because the draft usually has a little bit of everything. Some drafts I absolutely adore. Others I'm just kind of like, I don't know. And then there are drafts where I feel decent about it, but it's a wait and see. The 49ers are one of those teams where it's just kind of a wait and see situation. I understand what they did, why they did it, and how they did it. And I also understand that right now, everyone is looking at John Lynch's track record. I saw the article that Sharp posted, the list and all that. And again, it's not untrue. It's not false. They even asked him about it at the press conference. The reporter said, it seems like you reach a lot, you know, given your track record, do you want to keep doing that? And Lynch just responded, oh, I'm happy you feel that way, buddy. It was a bit of a tense exchange. But I appreciate the question. I appreciate John Lynch's reaction to it, honestly. I thought both sides handled it well. But yeah, this is where you find yourself when you've been a great team for years but haven't been able to win the Super Bowl. I mean, we have teams that are great, have won the Super Bowl, and they still get criticized. Right? People were criticizing what the Rams did, and I was one of them. You know, before the Eagles won the Super Bowl. But that year, going into 2024, people criticized their offseason and said, oh wow, great. Your defense is going to be better because you got Von Miller, drafted 2 rookies, and hired Fangio, who just got fired from the Miami Dolphins. That's a good move. And it turned out those were excellent moves. So you don't always see it coming. Sometimes it's perfectly fine to not have a strong opinion. It's okay to just say, I don't know yet. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the 49ers? How are you feeling about everything? Again, I saw a lot of posts over the weekend and read many of the comments. So I'd love to know what 49ers fans think. On this channel, for those watching these videos, how are you feeling about this draft? How are you feeling about John Lynch and, you know, where the team stands right now? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.